A while back, I watched the original Frankenstein film, the one from 1931, and while I was watching it, a weird thing happened. I couldn't stop thinking about Freddy Fazbear. So, hi, I'm Lucas. Welcome to my floor. I'm not the only one who sees similarities between these characters, right? That's what I asked myself. So I started thinking more about it, and I started thinking about other characters that also are similar to these, and I began to make a timeline, which I will show you. But I think I want to argue that these aren't just similar characters, but that they are the same type of character. In the same way that Victor Frankenstein is an example of the type of character called a mad scientist. You know, Victor Frankenstein, William Afton, Dr. Doofenshmirtz, that Nazi scientist from the Human Centipede. They are all examples of the same type of character despite existing in different genres and mediums. I think there's something similar going on here. Before we begin, I just want to clarify that throughout this video I will be referring to Frankenstein's monster as just for Frankenstein, because that is what he is known as in the popular consciousness. You may also notice that I have written 1931 instead of 1818, which is when the novel was written, and that is because the novel version of the character and the movie version are quite different, and I think that only the movie version and from it all of the other cinematic and most control showings of Frankenstein fit into this character, but not the book character. Also, when I say for Freddy Fazbear, I can also see arguments for Bonnie or even Chica fitting into this archetype. Not Foxy, because he's too scrawny. He looks like he could be beat up on baddies. So let's start with Frankenstein, father of Frankenstein, created in 1818 by Mary Shelley and made into a pop culture character in 1931 by James Whale, where he was played by my boy Boris Karloff. Boris, we miss you every day, brother. So let's go over some key traits of his. He is strong. He can pick humans up very easily. So he's like unnaturally strong. He is physically different, and in his case, I mean, for one, he is very tall. I mean, have you seen the golf boots they made Boris wear? They were fucking huge. But also, obviously, he is made out of corpse parts. He has, you know, the bolts, the stitches. He doesn't quite look like the average human. He has a limited speech. I will write it as mute because it's shorter. And by that I mean, in the first film, he doesn't talk at all. He can make like noises and stuff, and then in the second movie, Bride of Frankenstein, through socialization, he gains a limited sort of speech. He can say like fire bad, friend good, but he can't really make sentences or speak on the level that a usual adult human would. I wouldn't say that he's childlike. Even okay, so like he was born like very recently. He was born at a very young age, okay?
The first 2 years of my life, I couldn't even walk.
He has the same amount of information about the world that a child would have, and his I would say his most pivotal scene in the first movie is with a child character, that being Maria. So I would put down that he has a connection to children. Then we have Freddy Fazbear. Freddy Fazbear, created in 2014 via a mass hallucination event and also Scott Cawthon. My notes that I wrote just say, if Freddy 5 Bear was so great, why didn't they make a Freddy 6 Bear? I'm not sure what I meant by that, but you can take it as you want. Freddy is strong, he can beat your ass.
Was that the bite of 87?
He is physically different, and by that I mean he is an animatronic. He is a human soul stuck inside of a robotic animatronic being who is also a bear. So yes, I do think that he is a bit different physically from a human. He is largely mute, aside from his beautiful song, you know, her, misogynistic Freddy Fazbear be like her. But you know, aside from his song, he doesn't really speak. I don't think it's until Ultimate Custom Night that he and the other OG animatronics get their first lines. But even then, those lines aren't memorable. I can't really remember any of theirs. I can remember Toy Freddy's. I can remember Wilted Chica's because hers is like, I was there. I've seen everything.
Been here the whole time!
Looked it up. Original Freddy, Bonnie and Chica don't have voice lines in Ultimate Custom Night. Only Foxy does. Stay correct.
And obviously, they are dead kids trapped inside a machine, so they obviously have a connection to children. And on top of that, I want to point out that the FNAF fan base, especially during its early days, was mostly consistent of children, and probably still is today. I think a lot of fans, like me, I was 9 when the first FNAF game came out, so I was at the perfect age to never be fucking normal about them again. Maybe if you weren't there, you might not remember this, but a huge part of the fandom was kids seeing the kids within these animatronic characters and wanting to connect to not just the cool robots, but also the human children inside. And that's where the scene in the FNAF movie comes from, where Abby wants to create a fort with them, because there was lots of fan art like that in the day of just wanting to give these ghost kids a normal childhood. Now that I've laid out some of the key traits between these two, some of you might be thinking, like, Lucas, isn't this just describing the gentle giant trope? And no, because the gentle giant is built on the big, strong character being gentle, obviously, being nice. And I don't think that any of these characters necessarily are nice or their appeal is being nice. I think, to the contrary, that the last trait is that either they are scary or like on the villainous side, like they aren't necessarily good guys. You know, obviously Freddy is the villain, he will kill you.
Was that
her. You know? Frankenstein is morally grey, just like his skin, and obviously he dies in both of his original films because he was seen as villainous enough that the Hays Code forced the villains to always lose or die in the end, and he was considered a villain despite being sympathetic. And also he is scary, he's a spooky man. Spooky, scary Frankenstein man, it's fucking Halloween, you know? When I pop out, it gets scary like a cemetery. I'm fresh to death, I need a hearse when I get shopping, baby. Like make us some raw, it takes a chance on a shout out, make it be hardy. Just to talk about Freddy's and Frankenstein's story for a moment. They both died. They were dead at the start of the story. Then they were brought back to life against their will, partially or entirely at fault because of an evil madman. And then when they were brought back to life, they were trapped in a body they didn't really know how to control, and they didn't really know how to communicate using. And because of that, they accidentally hurt people. Then that same evil madman tries to kill them because he's like, oh my god, my fucked up child is too fucked up for this world. I gotta kill them to cover up my traces so I can continue living my life. William, Victor, their names are even similar. And then they both like music. Same fucking same fucking guy. Now that I have now that I have shown you the key trait of this type of character, it's time to create the timeline. And I think an obvious next inclusion in the timeline is none other than the Hulk. Okay, so the Hulk. Created in 1962 by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and by great tits by Lou Ferrigno. And I want to quickly clarify, I mean the Hulk, not Bruce Banner. I love Brucey baby, as any other mentally unwell nerd do. But they are different characters. They've been separate characters for like at least a decade now. But yeah, the Hulk is strong. I would say it's what he's quite famous for it actually. He's physically different because he's green and he's also very huge and muscular and all this. He is scary. I mean, I think that the Hulk can be counted as a gentle giant, depending on which iteration of him you're watching. In a lot of the media geared towards younger kids, the Hulk is usually shown as a gentle giant.
Oh, I brought Bun Bun!
I want to see Bun Buns!
One at a time, kids. One at a time. Oh, isn't she so soft? Oh, Bun Buns! Where are you hippity-hopping to?
It's like, it can be made into a nice gentle giant, but he is also usually shown as quite scary. Here he is, walking out of the grave. He has the same speech as Frankenstein in the second movie, wherein he can say simple phrases like Hulk smash, puny banner stupid, humanity bad, stuff like that. But he can't really create super elaborate sentences. And lastly, and I might have to explain a bit for those who aren't super caught up on the Hulk lore, but Hulk is a kid.
Hulk smash! Hulk smash! Whoa! That's one strong baby!
In the lore, Hulk, as in the green guy, the big guy, is the alter that Bruce created as a child because Bruce's father abused both him and his mom. And the Hulk was the altar that was created to store all of the anger. He couldn't use that anger against his dad or to protect his mom. So that anger festered for years until Bruce got bombed by his own gamma bomb. So that's why he speaks like that, because he's like a 5-year-old kid who hasn't really learned how to speak. And also why he acts kind of like a toddler.
Go again.
And I don't think I have to super explain the connection between Frankenstein and the Hulk, because the Hulk was literally grey in his first appearance. He has the Boris Karloff emo haircut. If Mary Shelley could sue from the grave, then the Hulk might get sued for copyright claims. So I have, based on like the Spotify playlists that have been made about Bruce, which is the one true and correct way to see what a fandom thinks about a character. A lot of people seem to the Hulk as like only a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of character, which like for sure Stan Lee and Jack Kirby took inspiration from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. But like the whole thing with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is that Mr. Hyde doesn't actually exist. It's just an excuse Jekyll uses to like get to indulge in his urges and to be a bad person. I think that a lot more than the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby took inspiration from Frankenstein, and they asked what if Frankenstein, as in Victor for Frankenstein, and his monster was put in the same body? What would happen then? And I hope that you can also see how these two connect to Freddy over there. Let's quickly, in a lightning run, fill in this timeline a bit more. In 1915, the Golem movie came out, and the Golem movie was also an expressionistic movie that very heavily inspired the movie portrayal of Frankenstein. The Golem is a Jewish folklore character that has existed since like the 16th century. If you want a more detailed video on the Golem, I would recommend Jacob Geller's video on it. But since it inspired Frankenstein and Frankenstein inspired everything else, I thought it's worth bringing up. Speaking of characters inspired by Frankenstein, the Lurch from the Addams Family, and then for the character that I think the least people know about, from 1977, technically a bit before that, because he also came from a book but was then changed a bunch for a movie. We got Jaws, not the shark, but Jaws, the James Bond character from the movie The Spy Who Loved Me, played by Richard Kiel, who, fun fact, Richard Kiel was actually considered to play the part of the Hulk in the Hulk TV series from the 80s, you know, where Lou Ferrigno played him, which I would have loved to see that. As someone who loves Jaws, I would have loved to see Richard Kiel in it, but I understand why they didn't go for it, since Richard Kiel, despite being a very tall man, I think he has like gigantism or something that makes him very tall, isn't very like muscular. Jaws is a goon, not that type of goon. He's a henchman for the main villain from the movie. He is, first of all, strong. He can like pick up rocks and like hold back cars and stuff. And he is physically different, as most Bond villains are. They tend to have scars or be physically different, you know, big, short, something like that, or be disabled. Which Jaws is, he is unusually tall, first of all. He also has metal teeth, which is where the name comes from, because he can bite like a shark.
Was that the bite of 87?
And he also has like a weird thing on his forehead, which I don't know if that's supposed to imply that he was like dropped as a baby or something. And that's why he doesn't speak or something, because yes, he is mute in the first movie, but he is one of the few Bond villains aside from Blofeld, who have appeared in multiple movies because people loved him so much. And in the second movie, Moonraker, he does actually speak. He speaks one line at the end of the movie when he has shifted sides to be one of the good ones. And I think that says quite a bit about the view of disability within Bond movies. Because what do you mean he only spoke once he became one of the good guys? James, you wanna say something about that? And also, he is another character who is hugely, or is maybe like more like was. It's a movie from the 70s and he isn't super well known. He was very popular with kids. There was Jaws toys made. Jaws was always my favorite Bond character. He and Octopussy. Octopussy enjoyers, rise up! But yeah, when I was a kid, I wanted Jaws to be my dad. I wanted him to come from the screen and take care of me. And judging by the amount of letters and stuff from kids Richard Keela got, I don't think I was the only one. So at this point in my thought process, I had come up with this an entire timeline, but I wondered, like, where did it all come from? Does this type of character have an origin, as most character types do? And then it hit me. The fucking Minotaur! No, the Minotaur, the half-human, half-bull man from Greek mythology, created somewhere between 3000 and 1450 BCE. These numbers, I can't read the numbers, I wasn't made for it. But like, the Minotaur, he has all of these traits, right? He is strong, since he's a bit of a bull. He is physically different, since he has a bull head, you know? He is scary because he eats people and he lives inside of a labyrinth. He is mute since, you know, he has the head of a bull and bulls don't typically speak. And he has a connection to children since in the story of the Minotaur, he was the child of King Minos and his wife. Oh, well, not King Minos, it was Minos' wife who had sex with a bull. Don't ask, it was Poseidon's fault. And from it, the Minotaur was created, and as a child, he was cast out into a labyrinth, and the only thing he could eat was humans. I don't know why, since bulls don't typically eat humans. I don't know if they tried giving him grass first before throwing him into the labyrinth, but they threw him into a labyrinth, and there he grew up alone, and was sent food every few years, before the champion of the kingdom came in and killed him. And I know in my heart and soul that back in 1450 BCE there were children writing fanfiction in their heads being like, I could fix him, I could fix the Minotaur. If they sent me in, I would come in there, I would start playing Happy Sack with him and stuff. I could make him happy, I know it. It was, I mean, my thought that he fits into all of this was partly inspired by art such as this, depicting the Minotaur as childlike or as sympathetic. But also, while I was reading House of Leaves, there is a part on the Minotaur. Actually, I've been thinking on it. I have never seen an Addams Family film, so I don't feel confident enough to point out Lurch specifically, so let's change this thing over here to just like Frankenstein-inspired characters overall, because I think a lot of them can be put into this category, but I don't know enough about him to say definitely, so I don't want to put him in on the board. The decision to include the Minotaur was also inspired by a passage from House of Leaf, which I think nicely segues us over into the point of all of these characters and why I think they are interesting to talk about thematically, so let me read the passage to you now. At the risk of stating the obvious, no woman can mate with a bull and produce a child. Recognizing this simple scientific fact, I am led to a somewhat interesting suspicion. King Minos did not build the labyrinth to imprison a monster, but to conceal a deformed child, his child. While the Minotaur has often been depicted as a creature with the body of a bull, but the torso of a man, centaur-like, the myth describes the Minotaur as simply having the head of a bull and the body of a man, or in other words, a man with a deformed face. I believe pride would not allow Minos to accept that the heir to the throne had a horrendous appearance. Consequently, he dissolved the right of ascension by publicly accusing his wife Persephone of fornicating with a male bovine. Having enough conscience to keep from murdering his own for flesh and blood, Minos had a labyrinth constructed, complicated enough to keep his son from ever escaping, but without bars to suggest a prison. It is interesting to note how the myth states most of the Athenian youth fed to the Minotaur actually starved to death in the labyrinth, thus indicating their deaths had more to do with the complexity of the maze and less to do with the presumed ferocity of the Minotaur. So what I'm trying to get at with this passage from House of Leaves, and what I've been trying to get to with this category of character which I'm creating, is that I think that these characters is a great fictional metaphor for the reality of being a kid, and specifically a disabled kid.
Push! Choke smack! Hulk smack! Whoa! That's one strong baby!
Because all of these characters are physically adults, and because of that, I think the creators of these stories are able to do things that they wouldn't be comfortable doing with like a physically and mentally child character, if you get what I mean. Like being a kid and like having a body for the first time and like having to figure out how a body works is like physical horror in a way in of itself. And I think that all of these characters experience that. Like they all have to face being in a body that they didn't choose, that someone else kind of made them into, and they also have to learn how to communicate and exist among other people who don't look like them. Like, children are a minority, you know? The majority of the world are adults, and the majority of the world is made by and for adults. You know, most chairs aren't made for kids, most places aren't built for kids. You know, they are in an environment that is kind of hostile to them, and all around them is, you know, people who are bigger than them. Another article I found, right, part of a child's everyday life is living in a world of human giants where every shadow could be a monster. At the same time, you know, as you grow up, you like become stronger, even though you're still in a tiny body. Like, but as a kid, I don't know about you all, but I didn't know how to control my strength. You know, I got a good example. I got this doll, right? This was my favorite doll as a kid, and her head is off. You know, my English teacher, who was, by the way, a spy, who was working against Russia, but that's a whole nother topic, am I right? But anyway, my English teacher once, because I made a movie featuring my dolls, she was like, "Oh, your room looks like the kids from Toy Story's room, you know, Sid." And I was like, "Okay, thanks." But anyway, I pulled her head off because I was trying to get on a jacket onto her, and it just accidentally happened. And you know, all of the adults around me made jokes about like me being too rough with my dolls or not loving them. But I think that as a kid, destroying stuff is an act of love in a way, because you can't control that. And that's the same for all of these. Freddy can't control that, you know, when he bites you, he's gonna kill you.
Was that the
The Hulk can't control if he destroys a house. Obviously, it's on a larger scale than destroying your favorite doll. But, you know, there's a part in Hulk Grey, which is a comic about the Hulk, where, like, the Hulk, like, maybe a day after being created, he finds a bunny, and that's his first friend. But then he accidentally crushes the bunny. And obviously all this being like physically different and being in a body you can't really control goes doubly for the disabled kids. But it's also like disabled kids, the way they are shown in media, they are always kind of made saccharine, you know? There are very few people who want to show the reality of being a disabled kid in media, because for one, it's difficult to, you know, make it realistic and not like either boring or sad to watch. But it's also like most people don't want realistic stories, realistic kids in their media, because kids aren't really palatable. You know, while I was researching this, I found an article written by someone watching Freddy the Frankenstein through the lens of disability for the first time, and he wrote, when watching Freddy the Frankenstein, I felt at once overwhelmed with love. Love because for the first time I was seeing my brother on screen, unfettered by stereotypical and condescending Hollywood approximations of autism. And yeah, I think that that's it. I think that these characters can, even if they're not realistic, they can connect to kids and disabled kids in a way that like a creator trying to create a kid character can't. And also they're really cool and scary and monsters, and kids love scary stuff. And monsters also represent a world where everyday rules like don't eat bugs and wipe your nose are ignored. Monsters get to be gross, and children love a good revolting mess. I am realizing while I'm filming this that I'm really not good at really articulating what I mean, because it's like I can so clearly see the connection between these in my mind, but I can't really communicate it, and I just hope that like you all can see what I mean with all of this, because I don't know how to say it better. Like, these are my guys. You know, it's, you know, sometimes when you're a kid and you feel fucking weird and like you're not quite in the body you want, or you not in a body that you can control, or a brain you can control, when maybe you can't control your voice, like maybe you stutter or something, and maybe you feel like a little freak-ass monster and wonder if maybe you were secretly adopted or something because you feel so different from even your family. It can be quite comforting to go to media and see characters that are monsters in a very clear way, and it can be nice to relate to them and see that they are strong and can punch shit. And when you are a kid and you see that, then maybe you don't just see a big hulking green smashing machine. Maybe you see a sad little angsty green guy who you want to befriend and hug, and you want to tell him that he's not alone. And maybe you want to go to these scary animatronics and build a fort with them and let them be kids again. And maybe you want Jaws from James Bond to come out of the screen and adopt you and take you away because he is weird and big and not like the people around him, and so are you. And maybe you want to be Frankenstein's friend because he doesn't have any, and neither do you. You know, there's a part in I Saw the TV Glow where it comes up on the screen like these characters feel like family to me, and that's maybe the best way I can describe it. That this type of character feels like family, and I think that that's why they're so popular with kids, aside from, you know, of course, being big and cool and destroying stuff, which kids love, and also being kind of gross, which kids also love. I think that kids can see themselves in these type of characters, and I guess that's everything I wanted to say. And now I can move on with my life. And as always, Yume is here to tell you to like and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. I hope this made sense. Or at least I hope someone enjoyed. No camera, not now. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, or at least had fun. Bye! Yeah, he's going to sleep now.
Was that the bite of 87?